How windy will it get this week? How wet will it be this week? Are there signs of things turning colder this weekend? And if so, how long will any cold spell last? We will be trying to answer all of those questions in this week's Met Office Deep Dive. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Alex Deakin. I'm a meteorologist here at the Met Office. And this deep dive is exclusive to YouTube. So make sure you hit subscribe and then you'll never miss one. We're going to go deep on the weather throughout this week. There's plenty to talk about as usual. But as usual, we would also love your comments. We do read as many as we can, and we do really appreciate them as well. So keep your comments coming, and any questions you may have, and we'll try and answer some of them. Or if you've got any suggestions or tips or things that we could do better, or other areas that you'd like us to cover, again, do pop those in the comments too. But let's take a look at the weather, because as I said, there is plenty to get through. We've seen weather systems moving in from the Atlantic. This is the satellite sequence over the past few days. Lots of cloud piling in. And yeah, we're not going to see a great deal of change, certainly not for the next few days. Weather systems moving in, and that's where we are at the moment. So let's just bring it up to date with what happened to Tuesday morning. One area of cloud moving through. A bit of a window in here. Many places having a brighter day on Tuesday compared to Monday. But look at this, another slice of cloud and rain, and then a brighter slot, and then more cloud and rain. And you can see the weather patterns are just coming in like this, and the reason for that is because of the jet stream. So that's just chugging in all these areas of low pressure from out in the Atlantic. The jet stream hasn't been particularly strong recently, but it is getting a bit of a kick at the moment. So the darker colours in there suggesting the winds high up in the atmosphere are particularly strong. But we're not seeing big changes in the weather patterns, these broad scale patterns that we talk about. If we just fast forward, so this is Tuesday, let's fast forward to Wednesday. Again, the jet stream in this very similar position, shifted to the south mostly of the UK, keeping the low pressure systems to the north. Even if by Friday, again, it's a very similar kind of pattern with the jet stream to the south of the UK and not really undulating very much. It's kind of in a straight line, and it's the undulations or the when the jet stream suddenly peps up or suddenly weakens that tend to generate areas of low pressure. If the jet stream stays constant in one particular location, then you don't get actually much generation of weather systems at the surface, because it's the acceleration or the deceleration of the winds high up in the atmosphere that tend to create the disturbances down at the ground for us to see things. So the weather patterns remaining pretty constant through this week, with the jet south shifted. I guess the typical position for this time of year would be more directly across the UK, but the main position of it through this week is to the south of the UK. So that is going to allow, if you take the jet stream off and just run through the pressure sequence, you notice weather front after weather front. So we're going to get this system in tonight, this area of low pressure bringing wet and windy weather across the UK. But if we actually just run through the next few days, notice how the low pressure systems just stay up here and they spiral in weather fronts across the UK, one after another. So we're going to continue to see showery rain, bands of showery rain moving through. Often the isobars pretty close together around this area of low pressure, suggesting at times we're going to see some spells of strong winds. And that doesn't really change until we get towards the weekend, and this low pressure, instead of being sitting up to the northwest, actually heads across the UK, and that may spark a bit of a change as we go through the weekend. More on that in a moment, because as I say, we've got plenty to get through during the rest of this week. Just want to bring it back to Thursday and Thursday night and into Friday. So low pressure here, lots of isobars on the chart, showers on Thursday and Friday, some heavy ones too, but a little weather feature down here. Little set of weather fronts just moving through the channel. Now it doesn't look much, and it probably won't be very much. The rainfall from that system, from our computer model, suggesting that it's going to be the Channel Isles and northern France that bear the brunt of the heavy rain from this weather system. This is Thursday afternoon into Thursday night, really. However, there is a bit of uncertainty because of the interaction with the jet stream. Exactly how that interacts with the jet stream high up in the atmosphere will dictate the exact position and intensity of this little weather feature. It doesn't look much here, but it could turn into a little area of low pressure, depending on how those winds are interacting with it high up in the sky, high up in the jet stream. And this is just one computer model. So I'm just showing you here what the Met Office computer model thinks will happen with the pressure system. But of course, that's not always that useful. Sometimes we like to look at ensemble weather forecasts where we run the model many, many times. And that gives us more of a probabilistic look at individual weather systems. And that's what we've got here. So this is Thursday evening. We run the computer model many, many times and it generates this forecast. Now, this is one I picked out here is for the rainfall on Thursday night into Friday morning. Now, I appreciate you probably can't see what's going on here. We do have a slightly zoomed in version here. Just a sample of the different model runs. They're called members. So different member runs of the ensemble. And this is showing where the rain could be. And I've just put this up to show you the variations in some of the members. So this one here has got rain covering much of England and Wales from that system, suggesting that it is quite a bit further north. This one here doesn't have the rain as far north, but it has some pretty heavy rain across the southeast, whereas others like this one here don't have much in the way of rainfall, just suggesting a few showers. Remember, 12 in particular has very little rainfall across the southeast, suggesting that whole system would be further south. So I'm highlighting here there is quite a bit of uncertainty about the position and intensity of that potential low pressure depending on that interaction with the jet stream. Now, not expected to cause too many issues because even if it is like this one, it's going to be overnight on Thursday night. But it's not just the rainfall we have to consider. It could, if that low is further north and a bit more intense, it could generate some strong winds on its southern flank through the channel. And that's what this is looking at here. But even this is only suggesting a probability of what, between 1 and 20% of winds gusting 50 knots or more in that southernmost portion. So it's just something we need to keep an eye on because it could spin up into an area of low pressure that could bring a spell of nasty weather. But the chances at this stage of that happening are pretty small. Much greater chance of some stronger winds at the opposite end of the country in the shorter term. So let's come back to the forecast and zoom in a little bit across northern parts. So in here, we've got showers today. That's basically the picture for this afternoon. That's the weather system that's clearing away today. We've got brighter skies, but some quite lively showers actually across eastern England in particular. But it's as this next weather feature comes in, let's zoom out again because we are going to see, as I say, one weather system clearing away, this next one coming in. We don't need the rain on at this stage. This next low then comes in and brings a spell of wet and windy weather tonight. The isobars squeezing across the country, so we're all going to get a spell of wet and windy weather tonight. The rain will be moving through by first thing in the morning, and that will tend to clear away again as we go through the day tomorrow. This is tomorrow's weather chart again. Let's zoom in a little bit. Because in here, this is the main low pressure that's driving this weather front across the country. It's out of the way by 6 o'clock in the morning. But just in here, it's pretty subtle, but there is a bit of a squeeze in the isobars. And some of the computer models are actually generating a little low in here, suggesting that the winds could be pretty strong for a time through the night and into the morning across northwest Scotland. It's an area we're a bit concerned about, so we have issued a Met Office yellow warning, in fact, for tomorrow morning for this zone, just to the north of the central belt, covering quite a bit of Scotland, because in here there is the potential through Wednesday morning of gusts of wind of 50 to 60 miles an hour, perhaps even 65 miles an hour, especially on the coast, because of this little potential weather feature that's going to develop in here. Again, let's have a different look at that in terms of a probability. When you run the model many times, you get more of a probabilistic look. Now, this isn't suggesting what the winds are going to be. This is going to suggest the probability of a certain criteria being met. And we're looking at the probability here of 50 knots of wind. So what's that? 55, 56 miles an hour coming in to Western Scotland. Quite high probability. When we compare it with the risk in the south on Thursday, a much higher probability, those orange and red colours, of those winds reaching that criteria in Western Scotland during Wednesday morning. So that's why we have that wind warning in place for northwest Scotland as things get quite lively tonight and tomorrow morning. So today's weather, sunshine and shower, well, sunny, brighter spells and showers across the country. But if we go through tonight, this spell of rain, weather front's going to push in across Northern Ireland by this evening and then across most parts of the UK. Some bright colours in there, so some yellows in there, suggesting some pretty heavy rain over the hills of Wales and Scotland. And then the winds start to pick up behind that weather front as it comes in tomorrow. Notice there's a little bit of white in there as well. Let's zoom in. Could be a bit of snow on the hills in Scotland, but it really will only be over the tops of the mountains. Not going to affect any roads, I wouldn't have thought. So it's just some wintry showers coming in over the tops of the mountains in Scotland. Nothing unusual about that. For most, it's going to be another pretty mild night because it is fairly mild. But those winds will be increasing. And we can look at those in terms of the wind gusts. If we fast forward to the early hours. So here's another look at that wind, those winds coming in. And again, they don't look particularly scary on this because this is just one computer model run. That's why we look at the ensemble, and those ensemble probabilities were suggesting a higher chance of seeing something a bit more significant. So these are the winds coming in tomorrow morning into western Scotland, that west coast, and then clearing out the strong winds away into the northeast. So it's going to be windy everywhere, but those winds, as I say, could cause a few issues tomorrow morning. Some of the bridges could have issues, and even the potential for more widespread disruption to public transport as those winds gust up. And that's why we have that weather warning in place for tomorrow. If we just zoom in again on that, and we can see it is just to the north of the central belt. Glasgow's not really involved in that, nor Edinburgh, but in these areas. So Oban, Fort William, Perth, Dundee, Aberdeen, Aviemore, as those strong winds initially in the west move their way up through to the northeast during tomorrow morning. So that's an area we'll be keeping a close eye on. But actually, it's going to be pretty windy everywhere tomorrow across the UK. It's going to be the windiest day of the week, but it should be generally a brighter day as well, with some decent spells of sunshine coming through. And not too many showers come the afternoon, not as many showers as there will be during today. So it gets brighter. We'll see some sunny spells, but it will be a blustery day. Temperature-wise, tomorrow, well, that could get quite interesting. We could easily see 15, 16 today. Tomorrow, again, 15, 16 in this zone across the east, but it will be feeling cooler because it will be quite a blustery day. So we're still in the mild air, certainly for the next few days. It is going to be on the mild side with temperatures well above average and really quite pleasant in the sunshine, but of course you will have to get out of the wind. Looking beyond that to Thursday and even Friday. Again, temperature's not really changing a great deal this week. So we're double figures across the north, getting into the teens further south, perhaps not quite as warm, but there are signs that things will get a little bit colder as we go through the weekend. Let's take a look at the reasons for that. Again, we're back to our pressure sequence here. Let's fast forward to Friday. Still got the same pressure pattern, still the jets to the south, still the low to the northwest of the UK. But if we, let's just take the jet off, play through this sequence, what happens during Friday, this low sitting here, spiraling around it, plenty of showers. So actually Thursday and Friday are going to feel like April because it's going to be, temperature's going to be similar to early April, and it's going to be April showers, a classic April showers setup really, with some heavy ones in the south. Heavier showers likely in the south, but here we've got the strongest winds. The isobars are closest together, so the showers will be moving, whereas further north, close to this low, not as many isobars, so the showers may not be as intense, but they could be longer lived. So, you know, kind of half and half, 50-50. Pays your money, takes your choice. Do you want heavy showers to zip through, or do you want less heavy showers but to last longer? That's the case for Thursday and Friday. But by the time we get into Saturday, we are starting to see a shift. The low pressure system isn't just sitting up here anymore, it's actually drifting out into the North Sea. And if we pull out, what that means is that by Saturday, showing the winds here, the winds across England and Wales are still coming in from the west. So we've still got westerly winds here, like we have had for most of the week. But where are the winds coming from now? Further north. That low is allowing these northerly winds to come in. So that means things are going to be turning chillier. It is going to be getting colder as we go through the course of the weekend, with that colder air starting to pull in from the north. Let's take a look at that in another detail. So this is where we are at the moment. We've got warm air sitting across the UK. Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, still pretty similar. By Saturday, we can see that the colder air is starting to get in across Scotland. And if we zoom in a little bit more, we get some numbers up. And if we go further forward, look at that. through into Sunday now. The whole map's turned blue. So we are getting colder. That colder air will be spreading its way south right across the UK by the time we get to Sunday. But not especially cold, right? 10 degrees in London. Not going to get much wintry weather at 10 degrees, but it is a drop. So we are seeing temperatures this week, 14, 15 degrees. By Sunday, we're looking at temperatures of 10 degrees or around that. Just want to put the wind chill on if we can. By the time we get to Saturday. So Saturday's wind chill temperatures, the feeling in the winds, already just 2-3 degrees across northern Scotland. Still quite mild in the south because it will be quite windy, but fast forward that to Sunday and the temperatures now with that northerly wind are going to feel like sub-zero across northern parts of Scotland, whereas in the south going to feel like 5 or 6 degrees Celsius. So that is quite a difference compared to what we've got at the moment. So it is going to turn colder through the course of the weekend. In terms of much wintry weather, well, we're talking the return of nighttime frosts. That's likely, certainly across the north. Again, nothing unusual about that, but we're not really looking at any significant impacts. Even the cold spell 2.5 weeks ago that we had those northerly winds, that was a very different beast. It was colder air and it was just a different time. At this time of year, the weather's changing quite a bit. We're gaining, around the equinox, we're gaining 3-4 minutes of daylight each day. So the ground is warming up, there's more solar insolation. So any wintry showers that we see are not likely to last too long. Yes, there will be snow showers coming in on this northerly across the hills and mountains of Scotland, but again, nothing unusual about that. And further south with temperatures well above freezing. If you look at the actual air temperatures, 9-10 degrees across the south, it isn't going to be particularly wintry, but you will notice that change in temperature. And we'll notice that change at different times across the country. If we take a look at the temperatures across the north, so these are the daytime temperatures, whereas further south, if we come down here, these temperatures, yeah, they'll be dropping off on Sunday, but not especially cold. Further north, you're going to notice that difference a bit earlier as the temperatures start to fall off during Saturday. So across Scotland, Northern Ireland, you'll notice that difference on Saturday, whereas further south, it won't really be till Sunday or Monday that you start to notice those temperatures dropping off. So we are going to see a drop off in temperatures. It is likely to turn colder through the weekend and into next week, but not especially cold, just going from a bit above average at the moment to a bit below average as we go into next week. How long will that last? Well, let's take a look at some of the projections for the temperatures as we go through the next few days. Just pick 4 kind of random cities across the UK. Is Inverness a city? Ooh, I don't know, sorry. Apologies if it isn't. But 4 random locations around the UK, Inverness, Reading, York and Belfast. And they all kind of show the same temperature trend as we go into next week. So the red blobs are the maximum temperatures, the blue blobs are the minimum temperatures. And this one here for Inverness, showing those red blobs above the average line, which is here for the next few days. And the smaller the blob, or the box and whiskers plot to give it its official title, the more the confidence we have in the forecast. And that's reasonably high confidence that it's going to be above average for the next few days, and then it takes a dip. The one in Reading, very similar. Again, it's ticking along here above the average, and then it takes a dip. Same with Belfast. They're all taking a dip through the weekend because of that colder air is arriving, but they all then tend to bounce back up as we go through next week. So this colder spell isn't likely to last very long. They all start to rise. Yes, the box and whiskers get bigger, but you'd expect that with that longer range forecast, there is more uncertainty. So that's why you have a bigger spread, as we like to say, a bigger box and whiskers plot because the uncertainty grows. But there's still a trend there, and most of these boxes are still above the average line for much of next week. So this cold spell isn't expected to last too long. Sunday, Monday, and then temperatures are probably going to rise. I can probably show you that a little bit more detail on this one, which is, I think, is the one for Reading that I took. So again, here's a slightly more detail. You can see those red boxes there. The smaller they are, the more confidence we have in the forecast, and you can see that little dip into Monday. And even in Reading, there's quite a big spread by Monday. It doesn't look especially cold. But then next week, most of the ensemble members, most of those computer model runs suggesting that temperatures will be back above average, and even some of them suggesting it could be quite mild as we go through next week. So quite a bit of strong, quite a bit of certainty that it is going to get colder through the weekend into the early part of next week, but it doesn't look like it's going to be anything exceptional. Certainly nothing like the colder spell that we had a couple of weeks ago in terms of its severity, a return to snow on the hills in the north, a return to nighttime frosts. Nothing unusual about that at the end of March. What about beyond that? Well, there's no strong signal for the weather patterns as we go through next week. This is showing the probabilities of the pressure pattern, what the most likely pressure pattern when we look at not just one computer model, but actually different models and all of their ensembles, giving us quite a range, a large data sample of what the models are suggesting through next week for the pressure patterns, whereas the blue colours suggest more mobile weather patterns like we've got this week. So here are the dates along the bottom for the current next few days. Strong blue, it's all blue, and that's 100%, that's 0%. So the size of the bar representing the probability or the chance of each different flavour of weather. The blues ones are the more mobile, dictated often by areas of low pressure. The red ones suggesting more slow-moving weather patterns, something we haven't got at the moment. But there are signs as we go into next week that the reds do make a resurgence, but the signal is still pretty strong that the more mobile, dictated to by low pressure patterns are more likely to dominate as we head towards the back end of next week and even into the start of April. There are some signals beyond that April may well see the weather settling down a little bit more, and we're more likely to see some lengthier, drier spells in between, but that is quite a long way off. One more thing to look out for those temperatures for next week that I want to show you. This again is the ensemble model run for the European computer model, and we've just picked out one criteria here. The chances of temperatures being 4 degrees below average at midday across the UK. And the probabilities there, the colours representing the different chance of where the greens are the very little chance, very sensitive this touch screen today. The greens are very little chance, and the oranges and the reds are much greater chance. And you can see here, this is Sunday, so this Sunday coming. Going forward into next week, quite a strong chance of temperatures being 4 degrees below average at midday across particularly northeastern Scotland, but generally across northern Britain, quite a strong signal for those temperatures to be much below average. You know, we're about 4 degrees, well, 3 or 4 degrees above average at the moment. So that will be quite a swing from 3 or 4 degrees above average to 3 or 4 degrees below. Still in place on Monday, but as we go through next week, the chances by Wednesday and Thursday, even across the north, of being 4 degrees below average are pretty slim. So that colder spell isn't expected to last too long. While I remember Sunday the 26th, that's when the clocks spring forward. So don't forget that this weekend's clock springing forward through the middle part of the nights. Right, that's pretty much it for this week's deep dive. As I said, hope you've enjoyed it. We love reading your comments, so please do keep them coming in. If you enjoy this, please press subscribe as well. We only do this on YouTube. You can't see it anywhere else, so make sure you hit the subscribe button. We do all sorts of broadcasts on our YouTube channel, and share the love as well. Tell someone that you know who's into weather that we do this kind of thing. And please keep your comments coming about anything that we could do better or anything else that you'd like to see us do. But thank you for watching this week's Deep Dive. I'm Alex Deakin, and I'll see you again soon.